The time is now, more than ever. No more turning back.
Minasan konnichiwa, I am Malaya Fabros from the Philippines, and I was given the task of writing the lyrics for the song about enforcing the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons. And the lyrics basically is an expression of how I feel about the treaty as a common person, because somehow that this treaty marks a spark of hope for everyone. It signifies that the time is now after so many years, and the treaty is like a road where we can walk together towards a nuclear-free and just world. Thank you.
The time is now, more than ever. No more turning back. The time is now, more than ever. No more turning back.
All right, so welcome to all our guests today. My name is Pauline, and together with the International Peace Bureau's team from Berlin, I'm responsible for the tech support today. So if you have any issues during the ceremony, please contact Julia of den Brinke, Stephanie Verlan, Sean Connor, or Shiro Hayashi from Japan via a direct message. I also put our names in the chat, so you can always scroll to the start of the chat and check. So before we start, just a brief run through the practicalities. So we'd ask all our guests to stay muted at all times, trying to cancel any or as much additional background noise as possible. You'll find the mute button at the bottom toolbar to you at the left. Then also be so kind and turn on your camera so we can, it's right next to the mute function, so you see that, so we can get a glimpse at our guests. The event is recorded and live streamed in English and Japanese, and we'd like to take some pictures in between. So of course, if you have any issues with that, just leave your camera turned off. In case you have any questions, just please get in touch, as I said. We do encourage everyone to send their names and greetings in either English or Japanese in the chat right after we finish this brief introduction. And then lastly, thanks to the great support by Rieko Asato and Mary Choice, we'll have translation today from English to Japanese and vice versa. It will start right after this introduction, I think they're already working on it. I'll just share a few slides with you, so please give me a moment and then we can have a look at the translation. Ja, ich habe nur die Tube für die. So, how to listen to language interpretation? Just go to the toolbar on the bottom, further to the right, you'll find this globe that you can click, and please make sure you ticked the language that you would like to hear. Smartphone, pretty much the same thing. Oh, does it switch? Yes. Okay, well, this is smartphone, the extended version. So now I would kindly ask Shiro to just give the same thing in Japanese, and then we'll be good to go. Thank you for your attention, and don't forget to put your names and greetings in the chat. Thank you.
それでは、画面の右下の、赤い退出と書いてあるボタンの左側に地球儀のようなマークがあります。それをクリックすると日本語、英語というのを選べることができます。日本語を選ぶと、外国の方がお話をされているときに日本語で、言語通訳を聞くことができます。
Okay, I assume you are ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Then I'll just hand over the floor to Lisa and Rieko.
Hello, dear friends of the International Peace Bureau. I'm Lisa Clark. I'm the co-president of IPB. Welcome to this online ceremony. I hope this is coming through all right, Pauline. Everything okay? Welcome to this online ceremony in which we shall award the Seán MacBride Prize. For 1 year now, all our international meetings have been held online, as you all know. It's sad not to be able to embrace each other on such an important occasion, but the positive aspect is that this way there can be many more of us connected, and we spare our beloved Earth the pollution from many international flights. The IPB instituted the Seán MacBride Prize in honor of its former chairman and president, an eminent lawyer and statesman, a tireless fighter for human rights, who was also one of the founders of Amnesty International and Secretary General of the International Commission of Jurists. He held various important positions in the United Nations, including Commissioner for Namibia, and he was one of the proponents of the UN's Special Session on Disarmament held in 1978. Nuclear disarmament was one of his most constant commitments. He launched the MacBride Appeal against nuclear weapons, which gathered the signatures of over 11,000 international lawyers, and it is therefore especially fitting today we are here to honor HIDANKYO for its initiative to collect millions of signatures for that same goal, to rid the planet and humanity of the threat of nuclear weapons. Today we're here to deliver our 2020 prize to the International Hibakusha Appeal Signature Campaign for the Elimination of Nuclear Weapons, in which IPB member organization HIDANKYO played a crucial role, putting together a broad range of grassroots groups and individuals made up of 48 national groups and 26 at prefectural level. I should like to remind us all that HIDANKYO, as an organization, has already been awarded the Seán MacBride Prize in 2003 for its tireless campaigning in favor of nuclear weapon abolition. The Hibakusha are our teachers, our beloved mentors, always present in person or in our hearts. They have been at our side all along our years of anti-nuclear weapon campaigning. Each one of us, nuclear weapon abolition activists, has at least one mother figure or father figure among the many Hibakusha who offer us their life story, their experience, their wisdom as the basis for our activities. Their words inspire our actions and campaigns. We shall never be able to thank them enough for reliving their atrocious experience time and time again in order to enable the world to understand that these terrible weapons must be banned. This award ceremony offers us a twofold significance. Firstly, the prize was awarded for 2020, the 75th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. For decades, anti-nuclear weapons activists had hoped that by the 75th anniversary, the world would have abolished nuclear weapons, and many actions and campaigns were built on the slogan. 2020 is the year when the appeal that today we are honoring was ready to deliver millions of signatures to the United Nations in what is one of the largest signature campaigns ever carried out in the world. Those signatures were finally delivered to the UN in January this year, 2021. But in the meantime, another significant event signals the timeliness of this ceremony. On UN Day, 24th of October 2020, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons received its 50th ratification. And just a few weeks ago, on the 22nd of January, celebrated the entry into force of our ban treaty, achieved undoubtedly also thanks to the efforts and the testimonies of the Hibakusha. When Setsuko Thurlow accepted the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017, she said that the ban treaty signaled the beginning of the end of nuclear weapons. So we have come full circle. Seán MacBride's and IPB's commitment towards the abolition of nuclear weapons is beginning to become reality, thanks to the efforts of the international disarmament movement, which has been motivated and encouraged by the Hibakusha and by the tireless efforts of HIDANKYO. That is a lot to celebrate. Rieko, I pass the floor to you.
ありがとうございます。リサさん。
Thank you very much, Lisa. I am Asato Rieko of Gensikyo and also a board member of IPB. I'm so glad to see so many people participating today. During the past 4.5 years, first of all, I would like to express to all of the Hibakusha, the friends throughout Japan, and all those who have been involved in the committee to promote this movement, sincere gratitude and respect for all of your efforts to collect signatures and promote dialogue throughout this whole period, even on days of rain and wind, on street corners, at train stations, visiting house by house. It's truly your steadfast grassroots efforts that moved governments and world public opinion to the adoption and entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Let us celebrate and rejoice together. Let us also build upon the broad coalition brought through the Hibakusha appeal and together embark on a new struggle to have the nuclear weapon states and their allies, including Japan, sign the nuclear ban treaty. I hope that today's ceremony can be such an occasion to share this commitment together. I have some good news to share. As Lisa just mentioned, or she mentioned Setsuko Thurlow, and we have received a message from her. Setsuko is also a co-initiator of this Hibakusha appeal movement, so I'm happy to introduce her congratulatory message. Today, I would like to express my sincere respect and congratulations to Nihon Hidankyo and all those involved in the awarding of the Seán MacBride Prize. Thank you so much for your extraordinary efforts to collect more than 13 million signatures from the grassroots and deliver them to the United Nations. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons has been the long-cherished wish of the Hibakusha, and it has finally into force. However, the challenge reaching the final goal, the total abolition of weapons, is still before us. The nuclear weapon states will be even more opposed than before. And in Japan, the government's nuclear policy, which claims to be based upon being the only A-bombed country, but in reality relies on nuclear deterrence, must be changed. This new struggle will require even more dedicated campaigning and stronger international solidarity and action from all. There is still a long way to go from the banning of nuclear weapons to their abolition, and there will be great resistance coming as well. However, I urge all of you to continue to act in the spirit of the Hibakusha who perished in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The time has come to campaign with all of our lives. Let us work together as we never have before. From Setsuko Thurlow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rieko. Thank you, Lisa. My name is Reiner Braun. I'm the Executive Director of the National Peace Bureau, and I will try to lead you through this important event today. Since 1992, every year IPB awards a special prize to a person or organization that has done outstanding work for peace, disarmament, and human rights. The prize is named after Seán MacBride, the famous British politician, statesman, and activist. And I think he would be happy when he could see that in January the ban treaty was coming to power, and that we will today award in his name and in his tradition, Seán MacBride. He has done a lot for abolishing and fighting against nuclear arms. I only want to mention his appeal against nuclear weapons, which got the signature of 11,000 international lawyers in 1963. And these awards and the award given today to the International Signature Campaign of the Hibakushas is in a really very, very good tradition. And I only want to mention some names who got in the last years these awards. There is Bruce Kent. I think all of you know Bruce Kent, who all his life was a fighter against nuclear weapons. And even with over 90, he's on so many stages criticizing the British government for their nuclear weapons politics. I want to remind you that we were giving in 2019 the prize to Lennon White Gomez, who was chairing these important UN sessions where we were preparing and adopting the ban treaty. And she was playing a great role that this treaty comes into force and that it was accepted by the huge majority of the country, of the states in the United Nations. I would like to remind Douglas Roach, the traditional old fighter against nuclear weapons. And from the Japanese perspective, and I think you are in a great tradition with all Okinawa coalition against new constructions of Hidankyo base. These fight against military bases and nuclear weapons are two sides of the same coin. And let me remind you that we also gave the prize to these such famous people like Jeremy Coburn and Noam Chomsky. I think you are in a great tradition, and I'm very happy that IPB-Board, who is the decision body for this prize, decided to give the award to you today. So let me introduce next speaker who will show a video. This is Hayashi Mitsuhiro, one of the campaign leaders of the International Hibakusha appeal signature campaign, who was doing such a great job to collect in more than 13 million of this appeal. So please see with me the video and listen to Hayashi Mitsuhiro.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. And thank you so much to all of the people involved in the IPB and everybody involved in the award today. I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to be awarded such a prestigious prize, and we're very honored for this. I have been working as the campaign leader of this Hibakusha appeal. My name is Hayashida Mitsuhiro. My grandfather, who is no longer with us, was also exposed to the atomic bomb in Nagasaki when he was 15 years old. So I am a third generation Hibakusha myself.
私からは
So on behalf of the Hibakusha appeal, I would like to share with you a video which introduces some of our activities thus far. So this is first of all in a slideshow of our work, which I'm very glad to present now.
はい、ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. And as you have seen, so this was the video shown, the English language version. For those of you who are joining the session from Japan today, the ceremony, you can watch the Japanese version of this also from the Hibakusha Appeals homepage as well. So for those of you who would like to see the Japanese version, you can take a look there. As you've seen in the video, there were so many people involved in this campaign to collect 13.7 million signatures. In this campaign, there were so many different partners involved who are joining the ceremony today as well. And so first of all, thank you so much to everybody who's been involved over the years. It's not easy to work together across differences between ideology, religion, or race. And there have been many times within the past 5 years of the campaign that we could really feel this acutely as well. But nevertheless, I would really like to take this opportunity to thank all of the friends and partners who have been involved in this work, nonetheless to this day. So really, thank you so much. The campaign itself, in which people agreed with the appeal of the Hibakusha, was something which people continue to work for, a world without nuclear weapons, regardless of their position. And I think this campaign itself showed this vision that we are together aiming for. Nuclear weapons, of course, have this overwhelming power, but behind them, confronting the reality of the damage that lies behind that, and this shift from nationalism to humanitarianism is the true key to achieving a world without nuclear weapons. So I think the fact that the campaign itself has been awarded the prize today is such great recognition of this, and we are so delighted of this. As you've seen in the video, over the past 5 years, many of the Hibakusha who we have been working with as well have sadly passed away during this period. We so much regret that they were not able to celebrate together with us the entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. The nuclear ban treaties entering into force is only the beginning of the new step towards a world without nuclear weapons. Let's increase the number of countries which have joined the treaty and continue to work as soon as possible to realize a world without nuclear weapons. I am convinced that with all of us who are here today, our friends and partners from all over the world, if we bring our efforts together, nothing is impossible. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Hayashi Michiro, for the video and for the really nice words which underline the importance of our work. I have now the great pleasure and honor to give the word for the laudatation to Philip Jennings, the co-president of the International Peace Bureau. Philip, the floor is to you.
Thank you, Reiner. Greetings to everybody, and konnichiwa to all our friends in Japan today. It is a pleasure for me to address these remarks, which in essence is a song of praise from the IPB to you as we award the Seán MacBride Prize to the International Signature Campaign in support of the appeal of the Hibakusha to urge all state governments to conclude a treaty to ban and eliminate nuclear weapons. The ceremony today takes place just days after the 10th anniversary of the great earthquake and tsunami that cost over 20,000 souls in Japan, that caused so much devastation and triggered the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. We mourn this great loss of precious life, and we will never forget those that lost their lives. I ask you if lessons have been learned from this tragedy. 70 years ago, nuclear bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, devastation and tens of thousands of lives lost in an instant. You all have our respect. You never forgot the victims, and the Hibakusha continue to ask the world to learn the lessons from those dark August days in 1945. We continue to ask, have those lessons been learned? This month brings also the first anniversary of the declaration of a global pandemic that has taken millions of lives. We ask again, have lessons been learned? We say, and this is breaking news to our two interpreters, we say the world is fighting the wrong war. The UK has said that it would take a leading approach to nuclear disarmament. They were not telling the truth. We protest the announcement they made yesterday to increase their nuclear weapons arsenal. We at the IPB today will be condemning this action. As the song said, the time is not now, not ever. And I hope that the Hibakusha on this campaign can make your views known to the British public and the UK media. On the very same day, a draft law to end peaceful protest emerged in the UK Parliament to silence the climate activists, the anti-nuclear weapons activists, those protesting racial discrimination and more. We say that once again, the UK is fighting the wrong war, at this time a war against democracy. We ask ourselves again the question, how many lessons have been learned? And how many lessons do we need until we change course? For us at the IPB, the call is for us to reimagine our world, for a global reset, for a human-centered world, for a new social contract. To get there, we need action for peace and justice. And this is where your campaign comes in and shows the lead for the people of this world to follow. The campaign collected over 13 million signatures, a remarkable result. The IPB supported your campaign. It captured the attention of the world. This year, the IPB celebrates its 130th anniversary. One of our founders was Bertha von Suttner. She was the first woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize way back in 1905. A peace campaigner. She had her own signature campaign to create an international court of justice. She published a book, Lay Down Your Arms. Today, she would write, lay down your nuclear weapons. One of her famous quotes is, as long as our hearts beat for peace, we must win over the hearts of all people for peace. Your campaign has brought together millions of those beating hearts for peace here and worldwide. Your campaign was from the ground up, taken to homes and to cities, to towns and villages, to shops and schools, sports stadiums, high streets and stations. Tireless campaigners, face to face with people from all walks of life, heart to heart. An exchange of ideas for peace, a simple act to confirm you are standing up and speaking up for peace. You and the Hibakusha have taken on the global responsibility to awaken the world to the threats to our civilization. You have opened your souls and made our hearts weep with the misery that the survivors endured. You have confronted world leaders with the most uncomfortable truth of them all, that nuclear war exacts the highest price and cannot be won. In whose name the prize is awarded today, was, like Bertha von Suttner, a giant in the life of the IPB. He was also aware of the power of public opinion. And he once said, the big powers are traveling on the dangerous road of armament. The signpost just ahead of us is oblivion. Can the march on this road be stopped? He questioned. Yes, he answered, if public opinion uses the power it now has. You have demonstrated that power. Your campaign is helping to turn the tide of public opinion, not just here in Japan, but around the world. In 6 NATO states, 75% of respondents answered yes to a question, do you think your country should join the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons? The people are on our side. You may ask yourselves the question, we set out to change the policy of nations around the world to ban nuclear weapons. So did we succeed? Our capacity to dream shows no limit, and yet are we having an impact? Are we bringing about the change that we want to see? At the IPB, we say, you have had a major impact. We have all been part of that brilliant peace movement campaign spearheaded by the ICAM campaign to ban nuclear weapons. Your signature campaign started in April 2016. With ICAN and its allies in 100 countries, these efforts created what I would call the MacBride power surge to change public opinion. Just over a year later, in July 2017, 122 nations voted in favor of a treaty to ban nuclear weapons. As the signatures mounted, as a global peace boat was launched, the peace movement organized and campaigned, and they were joined by leaders and cities and citizens worldwide, and this resulted in the entry into the force of the treaty in January this year. It's remarkable, we now have 54 nations that have ratified and 86 nations that have signed up to this treaty. Thank you to the signature campaign for contributing to making this happen. This award is for every single campaigner. Our work is not finished. There will be a first TPNW conference in the next year. This journey to the dream of a nuclear weapon-free world is not over. The campaign continues. More effort is required. We must not stop. You must campaign even harder here at home in Japan for your government to sign the treaty. We have been impressed by our ability to mobilize social and peace movements, the labor movement, the trade unions, the Greens, visible in prefectures, mayors, governors, and in local assemblies. All of these movements should together continue this grassroots struggle to change your government's policy to fulfill the peace commitment in your constitution. The people want it. We appeal to leaders not to ignore their voices. We hope this award inspires you to fight on. We must fight on everywhere at the IPB. That is our duty at the IPB. We must reimagine our world. Peace, not militarization, must be at its center. The doomsday clock is 100 seconds to midnight, and we have fault lines in all directions. 13,400 nuclear weapons in the world, 1,800 on alert, 9 nuclear armed states, and 32 nuclear weapon endorsing states under the so-called nuclear umbrella. The world spends $72 billion on nuclear weapons each year. Massive investment is taking place to make nuclear weapons faster, more difficult to detect, more lethal. It's a global death trap. Military doctrines are changing to include battlefield use of nuclear weapons. Mini nukes do not have mini consequences. The world spends $1.9 trillion on its military. A new cybersecurity risk has emerged. Cyber warfare, artificial intelligence applied to manipulate data, shape opinion, influence military decisions, and shrinking decision-making time, bringing more uncertainty. We are not free from the fear of nuclear weapons accidents, and one day our luck will run out. The IPB stands with you. We are against war. We campaign against militarization. We call for cuts in military spending. We argue for disarmament. More nuclear weapons, tanks, and fighter jets and warships are no defense against COVID-19. We say once again that the world is fighting the wrong war. Friends, we are committed to peace in Asia, and we must unite our peace movements to change thinking in Asia. As economic and political power undergoes a historical shift to Asia, we must ask the question, will this bring peace or new and dangerous friction? Our worry is for a future of tension, division, and strategic jockeying for power. It is said that we now live in the age of strategic competition as the USA and China confront each other on so many fronts, military and non-military. The UN Secretary General reminds us that multilateralism, the basic cooperation between nations, is on the wane. His call for a global ceasefire largely ignored. Strategic competition is a strategy for conflict, militarization, and we are heading for a collision. The IPB rejects this competitive framing of state-to-state relations. What we need is more strategic responsibility to people and planet, that is to say, strategic cooperation for peace. We can't heal those global climate, economic inequality, poverty, health, and insecurity fault lines without a new age of cooperation. 40 years ago, a global commission concluded that a planetary blueprint for survival required common security to replace a doctrine of mutual deterrence. The Palmer Commission concluded international security must rest a commitment to joint survival rather than on a threat to mutual destruction. The IPB is now joining a common effort to support a new push for the ideas of common security. a new blueprint for survival for this planet, which must include blueprint for Asia. We want a nuclear-free Korean Peninsula. We want a nuclear-free zone in Northeast Asia. We want a nuclear-free India and Pakistan. We want a new social contract for the people of Asia who toil for little, where governments continue to trample labor rights and devote more and more resources to military spending. The growing wealth in Asia must bring a new social contract for people and planet. Friends, how shocked we are at the coup in Myanmar, a return to dark days and means. We are inspired by the people of Myanmar that have risen together against the military coup. There must be no recognition of this regime. They should stop the brutality against the people. Political leaders must be released. We must cut economic ties with the military's business holdings and target sanctions against the coup leaders. There must be a global arms embargo. And on this day of celebration, we send our solidarity to the people of Myanmar. In closing, this award is fully deserved, and our lesson is that we can bring change. We helped reimagine the world with the Sustainable Development Goals. We helped reimagine the world with the Climate Change Agreement. We helped reimagine the world with the NPT Treaty and now the TPNW Treaty. We reimagined the world so they could be free of biological, chemical weapons, landmines, and cluster bombs. We reimagined the world as a humanitarian world. We reimagined the world to end the scourge of war with the creation of the UN. We congratulate you on receiving the Seán MacBride Prize. I had visited Japan for a period of over 40 years. I have met with the Hibakusha. I have met the young peace messengers. I brought 2,000 union leaders from the world to Nagasaki in 2010. And now the global trade movement is clear. We want a world free of nuclear weapons. We recognize your work. We recognize your sacrifice. We recognize your energy and your power. Continue your struggle here. Continue to take it to the world. The IPB will amplify and campaign and not rest on nuclear weapons. We face opposition, but as Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it's done. We are not dreaming impossible dreams. We will get this done. In October in Barcelona in Spain, we organize our IPB World Peace Congress. We will try to be in person and of course connect to the world through the internet. You will not be surprised by the thing we have chosen. We imagine our world, action for peace and justice. Please join us and let us reimagine our world together. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. And now we are coming to a really historical event. We never have done it. We want to give the certificate for the award
では、ここで
from Philip and from Lisa
賞
to Tanaka Terumi. Hopefully in the
Terumi
back
さん
we
に
will see now the certification. And I think, so there is a certification. And Lisa, please hand now the certification with a symbolic act to Tanaka Terumi. He will have his certification in his hand. So the floor is to you, Lisa.
Okay. I think this is a lovely way of communicating. Wait a minute, I have to move further away so you can see the whole thing. Yes, there you are. Tanaka-san, I hereby hand you the certification of the Seán MacBride Prize.
Tanaka Terumi, thank you so much for taking this award and for all the things you and your organization have done. Please show us your appeal. That is really great. Thanks a lot. And now,
Bravo, Lisa.
so this was the first time that we have made this ceremony online. So I think it was a big success. And now I would like to give the floor to Tanaka Terumi for his words. Tanaka, the floor is to you.
被爆者国際署名 Hello, everybody. And on behalf of the Committee for the Hibakusha Appeal, my name is Tanaka Terumi. And I am also one of the representatives of Nihon Hidankyo. Thank you so much for the awarding of the Seán MacBride Peace to the Hibakusha Appeal and our movement. And so I would like to express my gratitude by sharing my own experience of the atomic bomb and also the long-held wish of the movement of the Hibakusha over the past 65 years as our movement, to briefly introduce this and how, well, what led us to this petition campaign. I experienced the atomic bomb in Nagasaki when I was 13 years old in Nagasaki. I was at my home in the mountain region, about 3.2 kilometers from the hypercenter. I was startled by the tremendous flash of the explosion, but after that I lost consciousness and was trapped under a large glass door that was blown open by the shockwave. I have no memory of that time. Miraculously, the glass did not break and I survived without serious injury. However, 5 people from 2 households of my family who were living in the area of the hypercenter lost their lives in bombing. When I went to the hypercenter area 3 days later to check on their safety, there were just no words to describe the devastation that I saw at that time. There were many charred and badly burned corpses on the ground. Survivors who were lying in serious condition were left unattended with nothing that could be done to help them. Of course, most of the buildings had been burned down, and there was nothing to see even as far as 2 kilometers in the distance. We had lost even any sense of feeling pity or horror as a human in that sense at the moment. I was searching and I finally found the remains of my relative's house where they were lying charred, of my aunt and uncle, and another house of another aunt, which had been destroyed, but the house itself was not burnt down. However, she had been badly burned and had already passed away before I arrived there. My grandfather was also badly burned and was close to dying. When I saw my aunt there, that was when I felt my sense of humanity come rushing back to me, and I just broke down crying with grief. Throughout that whole day, I walked around the hypocenter area, and the devastation I saw then has never left my mind. I remember thinking that even despite my education, military education as a child, I was thinking, even if this is war, the cruel killing and maiming of civilians in this way should never be allowed to happen. That was the origin of my involvement in the Hibakusha movement to this day. However, during the following 7 years of US Allied occupation, the Hibakusha were unable to speak out or to tell people about our suffering after the bombing. The doctors did not know about the airborne disease. There was so much unknown, and there was no treatment really available. It was only March 11 when the Japanese boat was exposed to the ashes of the US hydrogen bomb test, able to speak out. The fishermen suffered ill health and were forced to discard all of the fish, the tuna that they had caught. And this led to a nationwide movement throughout Japan to ban atomic and hydrogen bombs. Nihon Hidankyo, or the Japan Confederation of A&H Bomb Sufferers Organizations, was formed 2 years later in August 1956, when in Nagasaki, the Second World Conference Against Atomic and Hydrogen Bombs was held, and Hibakusha survivors from all over Japan gathered together. At that time, in the declaration of the formation of the organization, the Hibakusha resolved to save ourselves and through our experiences to save the human race from crisis. The basic demand of the Hibakusha to seek relief and support from the Japanese government and to appeal to the world for the abolition of nuclear weapons is still alive today, 65 years later since. I myself did not become actively involved in the Hibakusha movement until about 25 years after the bombing. Until then, I was struggling to get by, to continue my studies and to find work. So just living itself was all that I could do. Until then, I had actually been more focused on the peace movement. But in the beginning of the 1970s, I offered to help with the work of a Hibakusha group in Miyagi Prefecture in Japan. And it was then that I realized for the first time that the suffering of the A-bomb victims was still not well known either in Japan or around the world as well. Then, by chance, the opportunity arose for me to be part of a national delegation to the UN, calling for a total ban on nuclear weapons. So this was just by chance at the time, but actually the chair who had been planning to attend could not, so I was replacing him. It was my first time to the US and the first time to go to the United Nations also. And I learned that the delegation would be bringing a draft nuclear ban treaty, which had been prepared by Japanese international legal scholars to the UN at that time. And that was my first time. And that was also the first time that I thought, or I realized that we need a treaty for prohibiting nuclear weapons. At the UN headquarters that time, we met with the President of the General Assembly and also met with, at the time, the UN Undersecretary General Commissioner for Namibia, of course, Seán MacBride. We discussed with him the global situation at the time. And it was through the discussion with him that, or I learned that he was already a Nobel Peace Laureate and also the president of the IPB. That was my first time to meet him and learn about his work. Among the requests to the UN that were submitted was for the United Nations to take responsibility for making clear the underestimated damage caused by the atomic bombings in Japan. This request bore fruit, and the following year, it became real in the formation of an international symposium on the damage and after effects of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which was organized in 1977 by a UN-affiliated NGO. At that time, a survey of those who were killed by the A-bombs was also conducted, and the figure of around 210,000 people for the two cities combined was subsequently established as a figure to be used internationally from them. This symposium was qualitative and breakthrough for the Hibakusha movement. Many of the survivors who began to open up during the carefully planned and extensive interviews joined the Hibakusha movement. And they started to give their testimonies both in Japan and abroad and become involved actively in the movement. Also giving testimonies and becoming involved in many different ways from that time. The movement for relief for A-bombs have also changed dramatically from that point. It was said that the symposium changed both the people conducting the survey and also those being surveyed. Of course, Seán MacBride, as president of the IPB, was also present at the symposium as a key figure at the time. Also present, as you are likely aware, was also Lord Noel Baker and Dr. Rotblat as well at this international symposium. Immediately after the 1977 symposium, in 1978, the first special session on disarmament was held at the UN headquarters in New York. And then 4 years later, in 1982, the second special session was held. At each of these, more than 40 A-bomb survivors from all throughout Japan attended, greatly or glad for the opportunity to share their testimony. So joining these venues, joining these experiences, it's a little bit of a personal point to share, but well, actually in 2000, the Millennium NGO Symposium was held, and we also attended then. Many different civil society organizations collaborated from Japan as well. So it was on these kind of opportunities that we started to pursue the opportunity of holding an A-bomb exhibition inside the United Nations and really desperately pursued this possibility. We succeeded in organizing this in the lobby of the UN headquarters. During the 2005 NPT review conference, it was held for almost a month, actually, our exhibition. The exhibition was welcomed warmly by the UN itself, and it became a regular event during the review conferences in 2000 and 2015 as well. So it they were held for close to a month on each of those opportunities as well. And each time, around 40 Hibakusha participate from Japan in the exhibitions, giving their testimony to UN representatives and to citizens and students in New York as well. It was already approved and confirmed that we would be holding it once again in the year 2020, and we had been preparing for this, but unfortunately, due to the postponement of the NPT review conference, that's been difficult. Of course, whether it will happen this summer or not is yet to be confirmed as well. But although the debate at the UN toward the abolition of nuclear weapons was unfortunately not developing enough, since the 2000 NPT review conference, the focus on the humanitarian impacts of nuclear weapons began to grow. In the Vienna conference in 2012, the review conference PrepCom, a statement was adopted and the proposal to hold international conferences on the humanitarian impacts of nuclear weapons was made. This resulted in 3 such conferences, and the testimonies of the Hibakusha played a very important role at each of these 3 international conferences. However, the results, or what we had hoped for in the 2015 NPT, unfortunately did not lead to an adoption of an agreed text, which is something which disappointed us all greatly. At that time, we proposed to deliver a petition to the United Nations with the urgent appeal of the Hibakusha and the overwhelming majority of citizens, both in Japan and abroad, in the form of the Hibakusha appeal, to help to promote discussions on the prohibition and abolition of nuclear weapons and serve some contribution to that. This proposal received great support, and as has been shared already today, in April 2016, the Hibakusha appeal campaign officially began and spread across the country of Japan and around the world. The aging Hibakusha took this initiative as if it is our last great initiative. In the 4.5 years of the campaign, it's close to 5 years now, but an unprecedented number of citizens participated in the Hibakusha appeal during this period. In just a very short period of time, in each prefecture throughout Japan, its own committee was formed with their own goals, and a variety of diverse campaigns developed from there, as we have heard. So this groundbreaking movement, the fact that it was selected to receive the Seán MacBride Peace Prize, is something which we are deeply grateful for. On behalf of the members of the committee and all of the people who participated in the Hibakusha appeal, I would like to thank you for this. Not long after the start of the petition, a change took place at the United Nations that we had not expected initially. There was a rush to enact a nuclear ban treaty. And the lobbying efforts of the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, or ICAN, played a major role in this movement. In July 2017, the Nuclear Ban Treaty was adopted with the support of almost a third of the UN member states, 122 countries. And as we have reported, the Hibakusha appeal was also very successful, with a number of signatures received up to that point reported to the president at each relevant conference at the UN. Through this, we were able to encourage representatives of the countries who were supporting the TPNW. The signature campaign ended at the end of last year, and on 8th of January, 13,702,345 signatures were submitted to the President of the UN General Assembly. The Nuclear Ban Treaty entered into force on January 22, which was 90 days after Honduras submitted its ratification as the 50th country on October 24 of last year. This made nuclear weapons clearly illegal. So nuclear weapons were finally made illegal under international law. For the Hibakusha, this means that our cherished wish of 75 years since the atomic bombing has finally come true. 64 years after standing up to demand the total abolition of atomic and hydrogen bombs and state compensation and support for the Hibakusha, after 10 years of suffering from oppression and neglect, the Hibakusha's campaign of demands has finally come to fruition. In the founding declaration of HIDANKYO, they expressed their determination to save ourselves and save humanity from crisis through our own experiences. But this declaration was truly rooted in the wish of making sure that no one else should have to suffer the way we did, and really rooted in the love of humanity. Many Hibakusha during this long period of time have already passed away, I believe, even during this Hibakusha appeal. But their wishes, their will, and their movement have contributed greatly to the adoption and entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. The treaty has now entered into force, but it may take even more effort than before to fully abolish nuclear weapons. First of all, the nuclear powers and their allies who continue to oppose the nuclear ban treaty must be forced to change their policies. Unfortunately, the Japanese government, despite stating it is the only country to have experienced atomic bombings during wartime, has not signed or ratified the treaty. For the time being, we will concentrate all of our efforts on campaigning for a change in Japan's nuclear policy and its security policy, which is now dependent on US nuclear deterrence. And a petition campaign to this purpose is already underway. Looking back over the past 75 years, the end of the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union did not manage to slow the reduction of nuclear in both countries. It's estimated that even today, each side still possesses nearly 7,000 warheads, nearly half of which are deployed. There is no guarantee that these warheads will not be detonated or malfunction at any time. Nuclear weapons must urgently be eliminated. At the same time, we see these different struggles between industrial powers over and there is different struggles about power between the different countries as well. We see countries, for example, intervening in the international conflicts in related countries, giving the appearance of a proxy war, which also has the potential risk of leading to another international conflict or even a nuclear war. This also is truly a crisis of humanity. The destruction of nature by industrial powers has led to global warming and climate change and has allowed the domination of the pandemic. The world today is being threatened by the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to the qualitative changes in military technology that is faced as a battlefield, the world is under due to globalization of economy and culture and digitalization and speeding up of information. These rapid changes around the world also give us these kinds of whispers of a crisis of humanity. All countries, there has never been a better time for them to change their security which now resolved. I believe that this norm is needed on the world. And for the purpose, the role of Japan will become even more important. As the Hibakusha are becoming older, how much we can continue to contribute directly to building a world free from nuclear weapons and war. However, the passed on to the younger generation who worked with us together in this appeal, and they will carry on this legacy themselves as well. Let's together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tanaka Terumi, to remind us about the long, long fight against nuclear weapons and the leading role your organization and the Japanese peace movement was playing in the fight against nuclear weapons. I think you were a great example of the activities which happen all around the world in our common struggle for abolishing of the nuclear weapons. And I would underline your last words, say, the fight has not ended. We will not stop fighting against nuclear weapons before we have abolished these nuclear weapons. And now we are coming again to a very interesting point. Artists and musicians are a very important part of the peace movement and our actions. So I'm very happy that I can announce you now Okumu Akira, who is singing a song which is this year 15 years old, and which is for IPB a background also for preparing our Barcelona conference. The title of the Barcelona conference is Reimagine. And now we will be listening to Akuma, Akira, and Imagine, created by John Letton and Yukoro Ono. Akuma, the floor is to you.
I am Okuma Akira. Let us sing Imagine by John Lennon. He imagined a world without wars, without racial discrimination. So let us listen to the Hibakusha and learn what would happen if nuclear weapon is used. We have to think. So first, I'm going to sing in Japanese. Please sing along, and then the English version follows. You're welcome to sing together with me.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. was only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us in the world will leave us one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will leave us one.
Thank you so much. I think this shows the importance of music for our work. You have done a wonderful, wonderful job. Can I ask all of you to switch your cameras on? Because we now want to make not one, but 3 or 4 group photos, which you can see later on the different website, and you can recognize this very important single event. We never had a MacBride ceremony online. And then maybe I can give the floor to Lisa first. No, then I will close the session. But first of all, please make your videos on. And
On.
On, everything is on. So we're making now the photos number 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, smile and look up. All right, and you don't have the pages that I have, so please everyone just hang in there so we really capture all of our wonderful 125 participants today. Yeah, we are almost done. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pauline, for these wonderful photos, which you can see later on the website. Dear colleagues and dear friends, it was the first IPB online MacBride ceremony, and I think it was a great ceremony. And it underlined, I think, for all of us, the fight against nuclear weapons and wars. When I was listening yesterday to the General Secretary of NATO, Stoltenberg, making his report about 2020, announcing with proudness that they were paying $1.1 trillion for military purposes, that they were so-called modernizing the nuclear arsenals, not only in Great Britain, in the States, in Europe. These underlined the importance of our fight. And I think after the ceremony, with the background of the Hibakushas and with their long, long struggle for peace and disarmament, we will continue our fight. We will not stop before we have abolished the nuclear weapons. That is our message also from today. Thank you for joining this important event. I wish you, all of you, the best health and hope to see you soon somewhere in the world and hopefully again face to face. All the best. Thank you so much.